Hey guys, it's Dave. You, like me, must have some plants that you look at and are just amazed that they're still with you. I have 11 today and 10 different reasons why I'm surprised that they are alive at all. Some are doing very, very well, and there are a couple that have just absolutely crushed my expectations. So stick around for this one. I think it's going to be fun. First up is one I actually had out very recently. It's my intervariegated Hescheliana. And by intervariegated, I mean very intervariegated. Just look at that. It's an absolutely gorgeous plant. And for those of you who didn't see that video, my gosh, this is a thirsty one too. When I bought it, it was quite literally just a node and 2 leaves. Not big leaves, they were small leaves. So I really went against my better judgment on this because it wasn't that cheap for a plant that I thought might die on the way home, like a half an hour drive. But I was so taken with what I had seen online with this plant that I took a shot. I have obviously propped this a few times. I shouldn't say obviously, because some, like the Rebecca, kind of fill in a pot by themselves. This one hasn't. I could be doing more of that right now, and perhaps I should or / will. It's in a really way too chunky substrate. You may have seen my video just the other day where I was pouring out just chunks. That's what it's in. It's thirsty all of the time, and I certainly don't want to risk root rot. So this will be in either a upcoming chores video, or I'll just do it on my own time and not get any credit for it. Tied for first place on the most started over plants in my collection, we have Hoya species Kalimantan. Just look at how great this plant is doing. Absolutely lovely. Very, very pretty plant. And Numelarioides. And I'm pretty sure that nobody has seen these on the channel before. No, I'm positive. You definitely have not seen either of these. This one, since I'm holding it, is a plant I got as a buy 2, get 1 free from a reputable nursery that I have other plants from. And they went downhill fast, immediately, right away. I don't know what went wrong. I took safety cuttings, I propped them, I planted them, they died back, they died back. This plant had this vine doing well and this vine looking terrible. These leaves are all wrinkled, they never came back, it looked so sickly. The only reason I kept this plant is because I was going to do a video looking at a plant where one vine is apparently very, very healthy and the other one not, and just showing how they can split off and you can have 2 different root systems. That's a really common question on Facebook is, this part of my plant looks terrible, the rest of it looks fine. You get in and you find out a root system is bad. I have never once had a Hoya heal itself in that way. So this is quite an anomaly. I am curious what everything looks like under the soil. We will find out. Similar story on this Calistophylla. It was looking pretty good after I got it from a friend. I don't know if I dry rotted it, probably. I don't ever over water to get wet rot, regular root rot. And I started it over and then it was unhappy. And I started it over, it's unhappy. I don't know how many times that happened. It's finally happy. It looks fantastic. It sits on a shelf in my living room where I can see it every day. I really enjoy, it's a classic. Nothing fancy, but I really enjoy it. Never needs to flower. The flowers, I have a lot that have very similar flowers to this. They don't set my world on fire, but it makes me happy to have stuck with this and have such a nice looking plant, even if it is a bit smaller than I would have expected at this point. This is my Epiprimnum pinnatum Kujang's Flame. And I really have always loved yellow variegation. No exception here. This is a really beautiful plant. This is the second smallest plant that I have ever purchased. It's about 1.5 years old now. I have a kind of a tall ceiling, so I might be able to. None of the original leaves, of course, are alive, but you can see down here, none of these are variegated. Then once it started taking off, you know, that leaf, it started producing much larger leaves up into these. And this is one that has absolutely crushed expectations. It was seed grown, tiny, tiny, tiny plant, almost as small as the Hescheliana. Another one I bought same day. So I bought 2 plants that I really thought would just die right away. This also wasn't exactly a freebie when I bought it. So very happy to have this. I just took a bunch of cuttings from this that I'm propagating. I'm going to start another plant on just a support stick, like a cedar stake, like a 1 inch by 1 inch. No, are they half? No, they're 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. And see how it does on that. I don't like moss poles. It's easy to make a plant look really, really beautiful for the camera. What I don't like seeing is all of this. And if you have moss poles, unless you have them against the wall and you have, you know, a forward-facing vertical light, you're going to see a lot of that. Maybe you've got a better system. I have a normal home with furniture in front of windows and so forth. I'm limited to where I can put this. I see a lot of the back of this plant. I'm going to fix that because I did buy some vertical lighting, the new to me Barina, those 4-foot ones. They're fantastic. They're inexpensive, so I'm going to make sure that I can feature this plant properly. By the way, if you are watching this by the morning of October 1st, I've been asking for, I asked once in the community post for questions for me, whether it's on, I have a sobriety birthday coming up, October 1st. So I'm going to shoot a video, and if you have any questions about sobriety, long COVID, plants, planting journey, anything. I can obviously, if they're too personal or if they involve my wife too personally, I will just ignore them. So ask away. It'd be fun. All right. Next plant I found for $3 thrift shopping last summer, and that is my Phalaenopsis, an orchid, my first ever orchid. And look how great that foliage looks. And by the way, a lot of you probably know that half the time I pronounce foliage as foliage, like tin foliage. Sorry, I don't hear myself, and it's just a word I very frequently mispronounce. But anyway, this was basically potted up in solid dirt, and I mean like garden dirt, and it was, you know, probably to about here. Looked very, very healthy. Came in this pot it's in, and it's full of roots. I'd never had an orchid before. I now have 2 because a friend, if you saw the swap to end all swaps video, she gifted me in a second bunch of free plants or gifted plants, a dendrobium orchid, and that one's doing really well. So I put it in bark. Basically, it's all bark, and I soak it once a week, every Monday, every single Monday. I soak this, and this is one that not only crushed expectations, it has delighted me to no end. I do not know how I slept on a grocery store orchid for so long. I made it to, I was 55 when I got my first orchid. It put up spikes, it budded up, it got its very first bloom in November, and in late April, I finally cut them off. I am sure I'm including a picture right now. To have that pop of color in Iowa all winter long is absolutely magical. And it's not a terrible looking plant to look at as someone who enjoys green plants as much as I do. If I were to expand my collection, what I would not do as someone who makes content now, and I'm just shy of 6 months into it, but I would not buy plants that I think other people want to see. I would not jump on the anthurium train just because everybody else is. I am not going to grow plants for YouTube, ever. If I'm not excited about it, I ain't growing it. I am not buying anything and living with it and taking care of it because I could make a video on it. I don't care if that does limit my audience. It's not how it's going to work here. But orchids are a different story. I can see getting into orchids. And I'm not talking about buying every orchid there is, all 100,000 of them, whatever. But just made me so happy all winter long. Next up, you may have seen me repot this one. We might have done that together. It's kind of in an ugly cover pot just so I can hang it. It is my Hoya lanceolata subspecies Bella. I think most people just call it straight up Bella. And it looks like it's going to bloom for the first time. So I'm pretty excited about that. This one wins the award for, when I bought it, by the way, it was just a little snip of a thing like this. And it was the sickliest, sallow. I propped it, it grew out a little. It never looked good. It looked like it didn't want to live. I was really about ready to give up on this plant. It just seemed like it wasn't going to happen. And then all of a sudden, it just turned a corner. And you know, it's a very beautiful plant. As I said when I repotted this, you know, let me step over here. I'm so proud of this. I really love looking at this. This hangs in my living room ambient conditions. I look at it all the time, even though this will be the first bloom, if I remember to water it properly and don't blast the buds off. But just that kind of recovery from a plant that just seemed very clearly destined for the compost. And then to have, you know, this nice bit of plant. Yes, I can prop this next year and I will, but I'm delighted with this plant. I don't think they look like much on camera, but they're very, very pretty in person. And so happy to have this in my collection. And it was cheap, dirt cheap. Man, do I need to water some plants. This one's thirsty too. I know a lot of you will have seen this one because it's one of my most watched videos. This is my Epiprimnum Cebu Blue. And it got a really big late summer haircut because this will continue to grow all winter long. So I cut it way back and it will inspire more growth up here. But as I said in that video, one of my favorite plants. It's such a very lovely plant. When I bought this, it was from a local business, but it was very clearly one of those baskets that came from like a Lowe's or Costa Farms. I don't think they went to Lowe's and bought it, but a mass-produced plant. It was in that pure cocoa peat that they ship their plants in, and it was dry as a bone. That's a recipe for root rot. I also bought it in the winter, so this dry as a bone, I knew better. When I pulled the plant up on its hanger, it weighed nothing. And but it was inexpensive and it was a big trailing Cebu Blue and I wanted one so badly. I love the glaucous leaves, just everything. I love everything about the plant. I watered it. It's a bad sign for me. It's a bad sign when I water a plant that maybe weighs a pound or less and it suddenly weighs 10 or 15 pounds. It seemed like that means it's holding on to so much moisture. Then we had a cold snap and the house got freezing cold. We had a furnace problem and we had to get a repair. That plant went downhill immediately. So this one came back from props after severe cold shock. And I honestly it was so dramatic that I didn't think any of the plant would live, even the props and so forth. Thank God for seedling mats, and it came back. You've seen a much larger version of this before I gave it the big haircut, but definitely winter chicken dinner coming back from cold shock. Let's stick with the back from the dead theme for this next one. This is my Hoya Boati. And if you saw the video, Will It Survive? This was the plant. it had very, very, very severe dry rot. And it was one of my earliest videos. In that video, I was showing leaves. Actually, I have a picture of it. They were just wrinkled. I knew the plant didn't look well, but I didn't do anything about it because it looked just off, but not too off. And I was, you know, just trying to get this going and trying to do some other things and time and energy. And I just sort of ignored it, feeling like it would get better. And it most certainly did not. So in that video, it ended up being one kind of sad leaf and one okay leaf was all that was salvageable. All the petioles were wrinkled and ruined, just no hope at all for them. When I propped that 2 leaves, it became 1 leaf almost immediately. You know, once these start going yellow, they aren't going to come back. They're just gone. So it stayed 1 leaf in the prop box on a seedling mat for quite a while. Then it pushed out just a little growth tip, and it took well, all summer. It took all summer to get to this, and now every other day I have to unwind the vine to wrap it and re-clip it. Once this plant gets going, it is a monster grower. I can't imagine this being in a cabinet, a grow tent, near blinds. Anything it can grab a hold on, it's going to grab a hold on and just go. So is it worth it? Oh, look at the flower. Unbelievable. Just fantastic. Little champagne supernova fuzzy flower. What a comeback. Love it. This next plant exists only so that I can mispronounce it on camera. It's the Hoya tinchinensis. How'd I do? You may have seen this one in that swap video. My friend gave me this. It wasn't a swap, it was just a straight up gift. And such a beautiful plant. I really love this. It's on this list not only because, let me hold it up more, because it is, and especially when I got it, was so delicate. These stems they're almost like fishing line, like big game fishing line maybe. No, medium, small. I do not fish. Why am I trying to make a metaphor out of fishing line? I have no idea. They were tiny. They were tiny. And then there was a tragedy. I knocked it over in the grow tent from the top shelf, which is about 4.5 feet. I don't know. And then I did it again. And if you know anything about really delicately rooted Hoya, they don't like that. They are not amused by being dropped on their head once, let alone twice. And of course the substrate scattered and I had almost no hope for it. So while this is still a very small plant, look at that. It's got new growth on it. It's doing really well, I would say. Well would just be being alive, but it's putting on new leaves, some new growth. You know, yes, there's a dead vine somewhere in here or the other. I upgraded it to a heavy little, I don't know what people drink out of this, espresso. I wouldn't drink, I don't drink coffee. I wouldn't drink tea out of this. It's way too small. But isn't that a beautiful plant? I am so happy to have this. It is going to see the terrarium life very, very soon. I found the perfect jar for it. So really excited to give this its best life. Okay, I am going to check my notes. I need to adjust the camera for our last one. This one is my Platycerium bifurcatum. This is the only video I have out of, this will be the 42nd video I make, so out of 41 that didn't crack 1,000 views yet. If I had made a good video, maybe not the one I made, but a good video on this plant 4 or 5 years ago, this size, having come from a 6-inch pot, it would have gotten 40 or 50,000 views at the height of COVID and plant mania. I came way too late for that. I was excited. I thought, man, When I tell the story of this coming from a 6-inch pot, when people see this on the thumbnail, they're going to be so excited. No, no one was excited. This was a Father's Day present from my wife when I was really quite sick with long COVID and feeling pretty despondent, really. And we searched all day for a gift from, you know, the pets, and went out of town and found this. And the guy who owns this nursery, I don't know, he was cranky that day. He was trying to eat lunch, and he essentially said to this effect, "Good luck with that." And I kind of felt that, you know, growing a staghorn fern in Iowa. I didn't know anything about it, but it was quite striking, and it was not like those plants you see at Lowe's. It was quite a nice example, like very beautiful. It was packed in, you know, a very dense soil. So I was nervous about the whole experience, and I got it mounted on this old washboard, and it has never skipped a beat. It looks absolutely fantastic. It's just a wonderful plant. It is the centerpiece of my collection, essentially, because if there's a plant that someone's going to comment upon, it's this one, 100%. You know, most people, at least in Iowa, have not seen like a huge, big growing staghorn fern in someone's home. And from the time I did that video in, I think, probably April, maybe, to now, it has grown so much. It'll be interesting to see where I decide to put it this year. I do know that it is going to be growing under Soltech lights, if nothing else, which is essentially the vast majority of the light it is getting right now. So what a great plant. What a fun video to make. I know, please leave in the comments, you know, those plants that you thought were either goners in some of the cases I've shown you, or just plants you bought and just thought, it ain't gonna work. And then ask me the questions, and I will see you next Tuesday with some answers and maybe a fun repot, maybe some project. I don't know what it'll be, but it'll be fun. It'll be a big day for me. My wedding anniversary is Monday, and my sobriety birthday is on Tuesday. I will let you do the math on that. See you soon. Bye-bye.